Official news of the sinking of the Mendi was slow to reach Africa. It wasn't until 9th March, 2 weeks later, that General Botha, Prime Minister of South Africa, made an announcement in Parliament.
It is with deep regret that I have to announce the sad news that the transport Mendi, carrying the last batch of the South African native labour contingent, collided with another vessel and sank within 25 minutes. 3 European officers, 6 European non-commissioned officers, and 607 natives until yesterday were unaccounted for and must be presumed to have been drowned. I have all my life dealt with the natives, but at no other time have they displayed greater loyalty than they have done in the difficult, dark days through which we are now passing.
For the first time in the short history of the Union Parliament, all members of the South African House of Assembly rose in their seats and bowed their heads in silence as a mark of respect. On the same day, the Prime Minister sent a telegram to magistrates throughout South Africa.
Please express my personal sympathy and that of the government with wives, families and relatives of the native members of the South African Native Labour Contingent whose lives have been so suddenly ended in loyal service to King and country.
The magistrates called meetings of chiefs and headmen to read the telegram, but it seemed clear that there was little communication with the families. With Samuel's mother and father, they never received written notification of their beloved son's death, unlike English families in the same position.
On the families affected, this had a different meaning altogether, as if this government didn't care because the majority of the people were in the Mondi were blacks. They don't understand that it was because during the war, the tragedies like this are never publicized. And also when the news broke out, they were just told that this is what happened, they've died, the ship had sank, and that's it. And that was all. And nothing whatsoever in the way of consolation or whatever. And that left the families broken, not knowing what to do, and not knowing whether is it possible either to recover the bodies or to have a kind of a memorial. They were just left like that.
Back in the UK, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, responsible for commemorating members of the Commonwealth forces who lost their lives in the 2 world wars, paid tribute to the men from the Mendi. Their names were inscribed on the Hollybrook Memorial in Southampton, although this wasn't completed until 1930.
Samuel was honored in death in the same way as all servicemen and women are, by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, regardless of his color, race, creed, or rank, an equality that, sadly for him, was not evident in his life. The Hollybrook Memorial commemorates by name almost 1,900 servicemen and women of the Commonwealth Land and Air Forces whose graves are not known. It also remembers those who were lost or buried at sea, and almost 1/3 of the names on the memorial are those of officers and men of the South African Native Labour Corps.
Many South African Native Labour Corps soldiers died on service in France and are buried in the British Military Cemetery at Arques-la-Bataille, where their graves are grouped around a memorial stone which bears the following inscription in English, Sesotho, and isiXhosa.
To the memory of those natives of the South African Native Labour Corps who crossed the seas in response to the call of their great chief, King George V, and laid down their lives in France for the British Empire during the Great War 1914 to 1918, this memorial is erected by their comrades.
In Africa, the story of the Mendi attained an almost legendary status among black South Africans, and Mendi Day, the 21st of February, became a solemn occasion of memory.
The sacrifice of all the men did not result in better treatment for those that survived, despite all their hopes and the promises made by the government at the time. It wasn't until 1986, nearly 50 years later, that the South African government gave formal and tangible recognition of their service. This is the South African National War Memorial at Delville Wood in France. Here was added a Roll of Honor and a bronze plaque depicting the sinking of the Mendi.
In March 1995, in the township of Soweto, Nelson Mandela and the Queen together unveiled a memorial to all the men lost on the Mendi. The tragedy is commemorated in practical ways too. In 2003, the South African government instituted the Order of Mendi for bravery, granted by the President for courage in saving lives or property.
In Samuel's homeland, again in the name of Mendi, several rural development projects have been set up in communities that 90 years ago gave up the best of their young men to serve in a war in a land so very distant from their own. Proud young men like Samuel, who inspired the Xhosa poet S.E. Mqhayi to write about the sinking of the Mendi.
Then be comforted, orphans of our nation. From one death rises new creation. One man must serve that others may live on. Accept, and let this pity be your shield. We say that thus the hurt mind is healed.
Kosi yasezulwini